to order, record of attendance. Yes, go ahead.
Your Worship, I wanted to I guess, introduce Lindsay McKinnon to you in this role in assisting in supporting my work with council. She's stepped up within our department. She's an employee in the finance department doing water billing and taxation, and so we've recruited her time and skills towards filling the gap that was left when Linda retired. And so I just want to point out that we have somebody new at the table, and take it easy on her, please.
Will she be here for 46 years?
You'll have to ask her that.
Jim will still be on council.
Oh, my dear. Welcome. Thanks, Lindsay. Okay, absent with
Make a
regrets.
motion, Your Worship, that we excuse Councillor Dennis from the meeting.
All those in favor?
Aye.
Contrary? Carried. Declarations of conflict of interest, anyone? And you can declare at the time of the agenda item. Approval of agenda. Any additions or deletions? So, just a second now. Usually I have a list of additions, but we don't. CAO, we don't have. Okay. Go ahead, Deputy.
Your Worship, council appointment to Mariner Center Board.
Additions under 11A, Mariner Center Board. Anything else? Go ahead, Charles.
I don't think the road estimate is on the agenda.
Estimates?
Haley Road's on there.
Okay. You might have had an earlier one. Yeah, good? All right.
Will we accept the agenda with the addition, Your Worship?
Thank you. Moved, seconded. Any discussion? All those in favor? Aye. Contrary? Motion carried. No presentations, right? Okay, staff reports. See anything for the CAO? We've all had his report. Any questions? Oh, sorry, there, Councillor McLeod.
The first one, Jeff, is just a bit of a tease. What's the difference between 20 and 25% when you're trying to come to a completion project? And but more seriously, I see the Doug Melanson water supply, Doug Melanson Park water supply. I suggested a little while ago that my friend John Daly would consider working with the town and supplying the water. I wondered if that was part of the discussions or negotiations.
Go ahead, CAO.
I haven't been directly involved in that. I've referred that on to staff, so I can get back to you on that.
Good. Any more questions for the CAO? Okay, fire department report. Anything there? The chief is here. Come on up, chief, if you want to.
You're here, so you've got enough information here so far. If you have any questions,
Any questions for the chief? Good, thank you. Operations, Chad's here. So the operations report and then the ridership piece. So how's that bus? Come out and have a seat. You might need a chair. Is there a chair there?
The new bus is working fine. It's been in service since December 22nd, so no issues to date. As you see in the report, we're going to continue to use the old bus, just keep it in the rotation on an intermittent basis, just to make sure it's remains serviceable. And we're making arrangements to sell the transit van.
Oh, we own that train. I thought we were renting it.
No,
Oh,
we
good.
purchased it.
Okay. Deputy?
Maybe to the CAO. Do we have any other use for that van in any other department or fire department or anything else?
Your worship, anytime we have surplus equipment, we make a point of reaching out to other departments within the town as well as our extended family of corporations and ask the question if there's any interest. Chad has undertaken that process. If there is no interest, and then we'll go wider to sell the van.
Okay, good, thank you.
Good. So there's a couple months where the numbers are lower, but that's the months where probably where the van was used as opposed to the bus, I assume.
Yeah, probably. I think when we used, when the bus went offline and we had to use the transit van, yeah, the numbers will go
Yeah.
down because it's not accessible. Yeah.
Right on. Good. Yep, go ahead.
And do the drivers ever get any, or you ever get any comments on the route?
Not so much now, no. As We're into the
Pretty
third
well
year.
established
Yeah, I
now?
think everybody's become accustomed to the route and the schedule, yeah.
Okay, good, thanks, Chad.
Yep.
You can't get in? No, you need in. Okay, any more questions for Chad? Good, thank you. Planning, Caroline. Any questions for Caroline?
Caroline, you good?
Yeah, so I've attached a November and a December report, and I'm transitioning right now back to work, so the planning consultant is still working at the same time as me. I also included, just for council's reference, last year when we met, council put together some priorities for all of the departments within the town. We had that operational strategies meeting, and there was a number of items for the planning department. So I also did an additional report with some updates on what kind of happened over the last year with those, and where I hope to go with them in the next year.
Good. Any questions? Good, thank you.
Good.
You'll be at the next heritage meeting, right? I think you're the... So?
Go ahead.
You want to answer that or you want me to?
I can. I think I know the answer, but maybe you know better. So I'm expecting a baby. So at the time being, Jan and I are also sharing. I'm kind of giving her advice, but I don't want to take on any new projects that I won't be able to finish before I leave for maternity leave.
Good.
Okay. Thanks, Caroline.
Is that what you were going to say, Jack? More or less.
Yeah.
She said it way better.
Asset management infrastructure.
So we don't have a weekly report, or sorry, I should say a council report for you guys this week. But if there was any specific questions, we can address those.
Where are we on asset management? That's the number one question.
Would you like me to?
You lead, no.
Okay, all right.
Okay.
So the asset management program has been moving behind the scenes. We were involved with the cohort program with a few of the other sister municipalities. We've been doing work behind the scenes to try to figure out what level of service we have, what our target level of service is for the different assets, and then reconcile that into a work plan. And there's also some technical work behind the scenes as well with some database management and data questions. So we're addressing both of those simultaneously and just kind of pushing them along. We're not at the point where we have something that we can present to you guys to take a look at yet, but it's coming soon.
Good. Go ahead, CAL.
So I'll jump in as well there. So staff have been for over a year, close to 2 years, attending training, workshops, and so on around asset management. I had on the agenda, on the first draft agenda that came out last week, intended to give you an overview presentation on asset management that would lead into some of the work that we're going to, well, one of the things we're going to look at later on the agenda, but some of the work you're going to do in the weeks and months ahead as Charles has alluded, you know, we have staff have talked about and are using models to develop a program, but ultimately, you know, this stuff is policy, and so we're doing work to advise you, to bring back for your input, and so there will be some time that we're gonna spend together talking about levels of service, and that is really important that we're in lockstep on that, because that will drive future capital and operational investments. So we will be making a presentation, hopefully at the February Committee of the Whole, give you an update on asset management broadly and the initiatives we're undertaking as staff to do that work for the town, and the questions that we'll be asking you to participate in answering to drive the program. So we're in a pretty good spot right now. As Charles has mentioned, we're working with some of the other municipalities in Western Nova Scotia with consultants to put structure around our program. For decades, we've been doing good work in this area, but we haven't been as organized and haven't taken advantage of the data and information to the extent that an organized program can. So we're excited about it, and we hope you will be too when we give you a presentation and start engaging you in the process.
Go ahead, Councillor Hood.
So, Your Worship, there's been more than one, I believe, mailing in our material we receive, emailing, I should say, on asset management conferences and the like. I think there's one coming up pretty soon, fairly soon. So I'm wondering to what extent staff have been taking advantage of those conferences. They look like, to me, they're maybe over my pay grade, but there is one, I believe, that's imminent. It's being put on by FCN.
So as I mentioned, over the last almost 2 years, staff have been attending conferences, workshops, and so on. So what's driving this issue or this work at this point is
It's the gas tax.
federal gas tax program requires all municipalities to have or be in the process of doing an asset management plan. When that came out as a gas tax criteria, we quickly, senior staff looked at each other and said, okay, many municipalities will probably pay lip service to this, but we're a fairly big town, and this can have real value to us. So we're diving in to it with real intent and looking to really embrace asset management the way it's supposed to be done. So that's the purpose behind attending some of these workshops and conferences. But we do have to pick and choose, because it's not the only work we have.
So I guess just the follow-up is, should I be concluding that it is above my pay grade, or is it really something that one or more of us should be attending, that kind of conference, to get ourselves, I mean, they are put on for councillors and elected representatives. I looked at the last one. I didn't see how I could fit it into my schedule, but maybe we should be looking at that part of it, from our part.
Go ahead.
Yeah, so I would entirely encourage that, because I think there's a very important role that council will play in this process, and it will not be a project and we're done. It's going to be the way we operate going forward around the water utility and around the town generally. I think the more familiar you are, the more you appreciate it, the more you'll be able to communicate with the residents and explain the decisions that we make around infrastructure and services. So absolutely, if you can fit it in, I encourage you to look at those opportunities and attend the ones that you're most interested in and can find the time for.
I'll take a harder look at it, Your Worship.
Good. Any more questions for Charles on the asset management piece? Okay. Thank you, Charles. Finance. Jerry.
Yes, the statements for town and the water utility up to the end of December. We use those a lot for our budgeting purposes, so I've started preliminary budget information. Jeff and I and Charles have met initially on the capital budget, discussed a few things there, reached out to the managers just this morning, looking for updates on any potential capital projects they want to include next year. So I expect by earlier mid-late next week that Jeff and Charles will go through the capital list again and have, at that meeting, hopefully put something together that we can bring forward to council.
Okay. Good. Any more questions for Jerry? Okay. Recreation, we've got a report from Frank, and he's here. Anything for Frank? Go ahead there, Deputy.
How is, Frank, I went to the After the Bell program at the YMCA last week, and it was good to see, or really nice to see, that some of the students were taking an active role and actually helping with it was archery that day. And some of the girls that were taking the program or in the program were actually helping out Misty and Jeanette. So that was really good to see that they were confident enough to do that. And they did a really nice job. And the other thing, how is Trish making out in her new role?
Great. And that's a good point. One of the things that we're trying to do is ramp up some of our promotion of some of our programs. So we are going to be inviting council to attend more events and activities just like the After the Bell program. So the next time something neat's happening, might be a quick little email out, and if councillors have time to pop in, just like the deputy mayor did, then that would be great. One of the things I wanted to mention about the After the Bell program is that targeting youth females is one of the things that we've identified in our physical activity strategy, and this program exemplifies that. We've got a lot of teenage girls at Maple Grove and the high school that are may not be associated with a community organization or sport, and this program fits that to a T. We did receive $12,000 from the province to support the After the Bell program, and we've just been notified that that funding is not going to be available in the future. But what we are hoping is that we still will be able to access other provincial funding programs. I don't think it's going to be as big of a grant, but we're hoping that the way the province is shuffling some of their grants, that we still will be eligible to apply, but maybe just through a different format. And the other piece was around Trish McCourt, who's doing a leave of absence for Jillian Griffin as our active living coordinator. She's fitting in fine. She started our activity fun nights at a couple rural schools at Carleton, and Port Maitland starts tonight, so she's fitting in well, and pretty easy transition from her experience working at the YMCA.
Good, thank you.
Good stuff. Any other questions for Frank? Good.
Thank you.
Thank you. Economic development. Natalie.
This just got shorter. Just gonna sit up.
Might be the chair, I'm not, because even Charles looked below the line.
Good morning. I provided my staff report if there are any questions, and I just have maybe a couple of things I wanted to add to that.
Yep, go ahead, Natalie.
Just a positive update. This week and last week, I've been talking to different property owners who are in the business of renting and leasing space, and I'm happy to tell you that it's really picking up. They don't know what's happening in the town, but people are approaching them for long-term rental or leasing opportunities. So I'm on the scrounge for space for clients, and I'm finding it hard to find spaces within the town. So That's a positive signal, especially for January. The other thing is I attended the Ignite newcomer immigration session this past weekend, and I'm attending the tourism one. And a positive outcome of that is the diversity of people that actually attended that session, and where they came from and their stories. And I hope that there will be a dialogue with council on some of the outcomes and the outputs of that, and how we can work towards being even more inclusive to acknowledge what their needs are. And they did give some feedback with regards to where some of the gaps are within our community. And that was also acknowledged on a conference call with the Cape Breton local immigration pilot program that I sat in on. So I would like the opportunity at a future committee of the whole to present some of that information to council.
Yeah, so I could only attend that first 30 or 45 minutes, but Natalie's right. The stories that they're sharing about why they chose Yarmouth are, they're humbling. They really are. And they see what we have. You know, at the State of the Region the other night, we kind of had different stories, the wardens and myself. We are seeing in town, we're seeing the young professionals come back. We're seeing them, you know, our doctors and our pharmacists and our accountants, they're coming back. They are the Charleses of the world, young, you know, starting their families, and they're choosing Yarmouth. And there's a reason for that. So we're up and running, and testament to that is that it's hard to find space now. That wasn't always the case. So the Ignite piece was really, really good. It's eye-opening, and I'd love to hear more. It's really important. Go ahead there, Deputy.
Maybe to the CAO, since he's the boss, I guess. And I know Natalie's done a lot of work in doctor recruitment. It's not so much like showing them the area, doing some other things. I think there's a value in Natalie being invited maybe to the new recruitment committee meetings.
Yeah,
she is good. Oh, that's right. She was out the last time where there's.
Yeah.
Okay, good.
I'm attending one tomorrow. As a matter of fact, we have a doctor candidate coming in on the 29th that they'll be here at Town Hall. So there is another one that's visiting.
Okay, good. Thank you. Yeah.
Yeah, keep me posted on that, so I'm sure that I'm here. And good. Okay, go ahead, Councillor.
Thank you.
You didn't mention lawyers in your comeback profession, so I'll
Lawyers
mention
too.
lawyers. But we got 3 new babies in the last 2 years at our law office, so that we're doing our part. We've got two and 1 and due in 2 months. Two in, and 1 due in 2 months.
Wow.
That's pretty good.
You know what? I know it sounds funny, but there's a young group here, and they're all having babies. Caroline, your child is going to have so many kids to play with. Seriously, because they're all the same age, and they're all due in the spring. So it's amazing. It's good stuff. Okay, so any more questions for Natalie? Good? Okay. Thanks, Nat. Okay, business arising, food bank plans. CAO.
Thank you, Worship. So just a little bit of background and kind of some questions, and if you choose to answer them today, you may, and if you choose not to, they're just to think about for future. But as you recall, there was a motion from council back last fall to investigate the feasibility of installing a fence at the back of the property at 4 and 6 Herbert Street behind the food bank building. And while we were in the process of doing that, we were approached by the food bank. They thought they had a better idea, that they wanted to expand or saw the need to expand the building, and they felt that the building itself would provide the shielding or the barrier that was desired by council. Council heard that, requested a copy of what they planned to do. So that is attached to this item, to my memo. There have been a couple of complications that have arisen in their work. I don't see the attachment there of the plans.
I didn't get it either.
I'm
It's
sorry.
not on- That's all right.
I'm sorry. Okay, so it is a wing of the building that extends east, pretty much to the property line, say 5 feet from the property line. So there are a couple of issues that have arisen since they created that plan. One is that they realized, and we realized, that there is a right-of-way on the easternmost edge of, a 10-foot right-of-way on the eastern edge of 6 Herbert Street, which they would be encroaching upon, and so that's one issue. Number two issue is that 4 and 6 Herbert Street are 2 separate lots. They would need to be consolidated. They are our lots. We would have to agree that we wanted to consolidate those lots in order to facilitate the expansion. So I approached the owner of, or I guess the beneficiary of the right-of-way to see if he was interested in some sort of different arrangement for the right-of-way. He was not, and I've reported that in the memo. He was not interested in amending the right-of-way, and further, he did express some concern about how the proposed expansion would impact on his enjoyment and his tenants' enjoyment of the adjacent or next-door property. So there are some barriers to the proposed expansion, and one of those could be overcome by simply shortening the wing that would be extended. It would no longer encroach on the right-of-way. That would not necessarily satisfy the other concern raised by the neighbor. So what's interesting is we're in the fence proposal, fence idea, we were trying to satisfy the concerns of one neighbor, and this building proposal, which was put to us as an alternative, would actually create an issue at some degree to another neighbor. So just pointing that out. The other thing, I guess, around the consolidation is council would have to consider whether or not you're willing to consolidate the 2 lots to facilitate an expansion, or if you are not willing to consolidate, or if you would prefer the building not change in its size and configuration, you could indicate that, and we can relay that back to the food bank. I guess the question is whether they should undertake redrafting of the building, and unfortunately you don't see what it looks like now, but you would have to consider, is it worthwhile for them to do more work on it, or are you open to that, or are you not? Depending on your response to that, we'll proceed forward. I don't have the drawings here attached. Again, I apologize again for that, but so it puts you in an awkward spot. I would suggest that it would be quite okay to defer this item until we give you all the information. I'll stop talking and let the mayor take over.
Yeah, because I like option C, just move the food bank.
Yeah, and I think I had a conversation several times myself and Councillor Hood about maybe that being a stopgap up there. They're out there secure now for the next year or two. If we can look for alternate arrangements, you go by there, it's busy. I can see how some people at the far end of the old Capri could have problems with enjoyment or quality of life there with just the crowds going through there, but maybe I think there might be another alternative. I think we have lots of time now because they are secure there for the next several years without doing any further expansion or anything else, and maybe look for a alternate location, because there's still going to have to be, I'd still like to see the other information too, because there's still a lot of work on consolidating the lots. There's going to be public hearings, I guess. That would be the same things, or no?
Go ahead.
No,
I think
sorry. To consolidate the lots, there would not have to be a public meeting. That's a
I think
subdivision
probably in the
process.
best interest and transparency, there'd have to be some kind of public consultation, because I don't think that would serve the residents up there in the best way, but it's only my opinion.
I agree. They're there. It's a decent spot. I don't think it's the optimum spot for a food bank, and quite honestly, as many times as they have told users of the food bank, don't everybody come at once, so that you're not waiting outside. It's not happening, and so a spot where people are out of the weather, warmer, safer even, you know, that, to me, that's important. It's an important piece. So, okay, go ahead, Councillor Hood.
Yes, thank you, Your Worship. I'm conflicted on this one because, as Deputy Mayor indicated, we had some discussions early on, and my preferred option would have originally been not to go there at all. But we've taken that step, and once taken, it creates a problem for us. So I had asked that previous meeting that we get wanted to have a plan view. I wanted to see it, but I never did see it. So I wanted to, you know, I'm an engineer, or half an engineer. I wanted to see it. Well, I didn't see it, so I went there with Bill about 3 weeks ago to get my head around what is there. And from a location point of view, it's not all bad. I mean, you've got a restaurant, motels, and a former motel all around it, you know, either sides of the street and all that. Department of Highways is across there, so that kind of thing. He needs more space. There's no question he needs more space, and they should have anticipated that when they started. So the problem for all of us is, I mean, I'm not worried about the right-of-way issue and that sort of thing. I don't think that's, I mean, we've tussled with that neighbor before, and that can be fixed. But I've felt for a long time there'd be a better place for it. I really do. But they are in there. It's cost them some money to get in there, but they've spent some money and some alterations in the building. Not, I don't think major bucks, but they're crowded. They're definitely crowded. I had a complete tour of the building, and they use a lot of borrowed and donated equipment, I think, you know. So I don't know what to say. I'm tempted to say, okay, leave them there if we can accommodate them. I mean, there's windows, the windows could be eliminated in the back, I think. Wouldn't probably be as aesthetically good. And there's just so many compromises that at the end of the day, maybe we shouldn't be enabling it. So I've indicated to Bill that I would, or Reverend Newell, that I would look at this carefully and with an open mind, and I'm conflicted. So let's see what the next step is. The lots consolidation part, other than further enabling the project, is probably something we should do anyway. You know, we've got 2 lots there. Probably should be 1. That's all I have to say right now. I guess what I'm telling you is I haven't got my mind made up.
Good. Anyone else? I just think it's the wrong spot going forward. But anyway, so are we okay to, do we need a motion to defer? Would you prefer that?
Defer till the next committee of the whole.
Okay.
And I'll bring you back all the information we have, sorry.
No, that's okay. So, motion to defer to the next committee of the whole, please.
Make a motion, Your Worship, that this matter be deferred to the next committee of the whole.
Okay.
And to receive whatever further information can be obtained from staff and/or the proponent, for that matter.
Good. Okay. Seconded. Further discussion? All those in favor? Aye. Contrary? Motion carried. Business, yard sale signage.
Your Worship, this was an item that came up in a fall council meeting. The concern was the unsightliness of sign clutter created by say, temporary signs being posted around town to direct people to yard sales, and the resulting litter when those signs are not taken down after they've had their event. And they, you know, the weather, the wind, the rain, whatever, results in them coming off the posts and becoming litter. So we talked about having some kind of a tool, the ability to impose a fine or something on the people who do this in order to deter it. So I asked the solicitor to look into it. He did. He found a bylaw in the town of Truro that he found useful, and he suggested that he could draft a bylaw that would allow the town to remove the signs and to apply a cost for that removal in the form of a fine to the property owners, the owners of the sign being identified among the owners, the people whose address is on the sign. And so he feels we have a mechanism that we can use, but I stopped short of having him draft that bylaw. I wanted to bring that concept back to the table, make sure you're okay with it, and if you are, I'll proceed to ask the solicitor to draft the bylaw and bring it forward at a future council meeting.
Deputy?
2 points. What happens if a lot of people will put yard sale signs on the major intersections in the town of Yarmouth saying there's a yard sale at 1382 Chabot Road, so they're outside our jurisdiction. And the other one is, I know my sister had a yard sale but used a alternate location. So somebody else is having the yard sale and using somebody else's property that has a better location.
That's a good question.
Well,
Yeah. Oh, wait a minute now. Oh, everybody turn your lights out for a second. Go ahead.
Okay, so for the yard sale out of property, the yard sale outside of town, you wouldn't be able to add the cost to the property tax bill. You could still, be a prosecution if the town wanted to go that way. And regarding the person who has a yard sale with someone else's property, if somebody else lets somebody have a yard sale and they let advertising go up, then they'd be responsible.
Go ahead, Councillor Hood.
well, so the lawyer thinks that we can do it this way. I don't. Because you don't know who the hell put them up. So we need a permit system. And we have to remember that every resident of the town under our zoning bylaw has the right to have up to either 1 or 2 yard sales on their premises a year. Nothing to do with it. There's nothing said about advertising those permitted uses. But there's no sense, we'll never catch somebody putting up a sign with no name, address, or identification on it. There's no point having a bylaw like that, frankly. We'll have staff going out because we'll be growling at them because the people call us, and they'll be ripping them off on Sunday or Monday or whatever, maybe on overtime, and they'll have a sign, and who put it up? You got to have something in there to who put it up. So how else can you do that if you don't have a permitting system? And if you have a permitting system, then it's up to them to take them down. If they don't take them down, give them a ticket.
Well, just the way around it would be that the owner of the property advertising the sign
Yeah, but
would be
so
deemed
Nova
to be.
Scotia Light and Power? You going to chase them?
But no,
It's on their
no.
pole,
If
most
it's
of
on
them.
their pole, but it's advertising at 14 William Street, then
Yeah, but if
the
it's
owner of
advertising
14
on
William
63
Street.
Chabot Road, like most of them are.
No, for Chabot Road, right? You can't do that, but you can do it for the ones in the town.
Well, can I ask this? Can't you find someone outside of town?
Yes.
Sure you can.
Yeah.
But you need to know who they are. I mean, the signs that I see up oftentimes don't have anything other than an address.
It would be more difficult.
Not a person, an address.
Right.
So
But-
it's like,
but
it's
for
like the Department of Environment suing us and getting a ticket and they can't enforce it.
But if there's a sign placed on Stars Road for one on Brunswick Street, then the address at Brunswick Street, we can
Who are you
make them
gonna sue, the
responsible.
address or the
You don't have to
person?
sue them. It's in the bylaw. We have the power to add it to the property tax.
So then you make sure through advertisement that this is gonna happen. We have to make it very clear that this is the way the town is going, so that they know. If it's advertised at your address, you're gonna get the fine. So, did you wanna, because Jim's on, okay, go ahead, sorry, Jim, you're gonna be.
No, I just want to say that at the end of the day, it isn't about wanting to collect or impose a lot of fines. What we want to do is create sufficient deterrent, and it may require, a few of these fines or levies against the property in order to get the message out. But the idea would be is if you follow this route We do a lot of communication around this. We create a page on our website where people can submit where their yard sales are, and maybe we have a map on that page and everything people can print out or follow on their mobile device and go enjoy yard sales on a Saturday without creating the unsightly mess on poles all over town and the resulting litter when they aren't collected. So the hope would be is that we change the behavior through minimal amount of necessary enforcement, but obviously some enforcement will be necessary from time to time. The mechanism, you know, I think Truro has something similar to that, Greg, in place, and you know, if that's the tool, it is a tool, but it's not a tool we would hope to be using often. We would hope that people would get the message and respect what we're trying to do.
Go ahead, Jim.
I think Jeff answered part of my concerns. Listening to Greg and Cliff talk makes me think that a bylaw, no matter how good it is, very difficult to enforce, and it would be that much more that somebody would have to do in the summertime. So, and I walk enough that I see signs. I've taken some down this past summer because the yard sale had passed. I just look at part of the strategic relevance in what was presented to us this morning. For those people looking to get word out about their yard sales, a page can be added to our website for regular promotion of our yard sales. And I think that should be there should be no signs allowed, period. And then we should do our best to alert those yard sailors to look at our website or other forms of social media that we, and I had a number of people ask me where certain locations were in town on my walkabout, and so I don't want to see a bylaw developed. I want to see us, and I don't want any signs out, and I want to see us go that route, go in that direction.
We have problems where people will actually come in from the county or the other municipalities and utilize a person who has, you know, residents who has the right under the bylaw. They'll use their
Well, because
trading in their, they use their right to go and have a yard sale in front of that person's house.
yeah.
They do. Well, they shouldn't be allowed to. It's just one of these more services. They shouldn't be allowed to, unless they want to pay me $100 to do it. No, but seriously, kids have the right idea. No signs.
Yeah, see, and you know what? I think no signs with no teeth just doesn't work. You got to have some kind of rule that you're breaking. It's
You have to have a permit to identify people. It's simple to prosecute somebody if you identify. It's possible.
Are we looking for a direction this morning? So a motion to eliminate the advertising of yard sale signs on posts or poles throughout our town. Maybe there's a place in the county they can put them all together, and then they can.
I'll second the motion.
how do you do it with a bylaw? Yeah. Go ahead, because you can't just say everybody be nice, don't do it. You have to have a rule to follow. You have to have something to follow.
Right, so the intent is, I understand the intent is to eliminate, but what is the mechanism? What is the action you want staff to take? Is the action to draft the bylaw, to bring it back, and to create the space, the page on our website, and to do the communications? All of that we can do, if that's what your intent is. Or if it's some of that.
Go ahead.
I understand what you're asking or suggesting, Jeff. I think if it was known in the community and the reasons why, if there was a story that could be developed in media and could be on our website, that at this point I would be in favor of that. And drafting a bylaw and then having to enforce it later or as a time. I can follow those. I'll take a suggestion from you, from staff, Jeff, but I would like initially just to say out loud, no yard sale signs on poles within our town.
You know what? Speak as many times as you want, keep it short.
What of the bylaw, I'm a seconder on this thing, what of the bylaw said there shall be no yard sale signs posted in the town of Yarmouth without a permit issued by the development officer or somebody in the town and a fee of $15 paid or something like that. And then it's an offense if you don't have a permit, you can take, and they're gone. Because the permitting system would have, they would have to, in the bylaw, they would have to name, identify, and the person responsible for posting it and taking it down. That person then could be held accountable.
And yet, because I just need to ask this, and yet, those that don't get permits, don't pay, put up their signage, and then what happens? Because it's not the people that follow the rules, it's the people that don't.
They're always going to be doing that. I mean, can you imagine us getting Russell out on a Sunday afternoon to go pull down signs for
Sorry, I know
yard
this-
sales that were going on Saturday?
Go ahead,
So just on that point about the staff component, it is part of Russell's summertime routine on Monday morning to go to, he goes around to specific intersections that are frequently posted with these signs. He takes them down, those that are still there. So collecting the signs would be no additional work. The additional work, if we had a bylaw, would be to send a letter to do the prosecution or whatnot, or on the permitting side, it would be, dealing with the people on the front end of it, doing the permit process, collecting the money, and then checking the signs against the permits, I guess, on Monday morning. Did this sign have a permit or not? And if it's still there Monday morning, it didn't follow the permit because it's still there.
Yeah. Because you know what's going to happen, little Johnny or Susie are going to have,
Can't hear you.
you want me to start with Susie and Johnny, or Johnny and Susie?
Go right ahead.
Little Susie and Johnny are going to have a yard sale and put two signs on opposite ends of the street saying, you got a couple of odds and ends of some toys and an old hockey stick and something else up for sale. And we're going to ask them to come down. Hopefully they make $10 to go to the show or get in a hockey game or something. Then we're going to charge them a $15 permitting fee to sell $8 worth of stuff. And it's going to be grandma and grandpa that are going to come down and buy it, right? So I think maybe just, I know, yeah, you seconded for discussion, but. Yes. So maybe I think we should just, my feeling is just leave it right now, and Russell does his thing on Monday mornings, and then Jim does his thing every day of the week, and see where it goes, see how it works out this summer, and maybe Russell can, because Russell did have one concern he asked me, and that was the one about the out-of-town signage, and then if somebody leaves up 20 signs, do you find them 20 times, or do you find them once, right? So they put signs all over town.
The only people who are permitted to have yard sales in town are residents under the zoning bylaw. So doesn't logic tell me that no one can put up a yard sale unless they're doing it under the zoning bylaw? And if so, it makes it illegal for anyone who's not a resident to do it anyway. I don't want to throw, question?
Yeah.
We're spending a lot of time.
We're spending a lot of time when we've got more important things, number one. But number two, I just don't think you let people litter. You have to have something in place so that people don't think it's okay to just slap stuff up on poles and leave it. It's so simple. Just don't do it, and we need a rule that says don't do it. There you go.
The sign is litter, then we can treat it as litter under the litter.
Okay, I'm all in on that one. And Jeff's saying, well, I don't know. I'm all in on that one. Just change the litter bylaw and say, you know what, yard sale signs are litter.
The only, when Jeff asked me, I mean, yes, you can make it an offense and you can have a prosecution, but Jeff suggested that that's, you know, costly and unwieldy, and is there another method? And I said, well, there's another method, is that if somebody has a sign that the sign that advertises a yard sale at 27 Brunswick Street, and if Russell sees it Monday morning, then this bylaw would give the town the mechanism to add a $50 charge to the tax bill for 27 Brunswick Street, and it's done. And there's no need to have a prosecution. There's no need to have those other effects and concerns. And if somebody advertised one in Chibouque, well, then Russell rips it up and doesn't do anything about it, I guess.
No, that doesn't.
It makes a yard sale sign with my number on it.
Well, I guess if we're gonna, you can't really craft bylaws to avoid, you know, extraordinary
This is ridiculous.
situations. You can.
It's so simple. It's
Anyways.
litter. Take it
Let
down.
me withdraw my motion.
You can't
can't.
withdraw your motion because it's been seconded, and he called the question. What's the motion? What was the motion?
Motion, I just don't want, no signs.
I second it for discussion purposes, but call for question, Your Worship.
Okay, questions called. All those in favor?
Aye.
Contrary? Nay?
Change my mind.
What?
Nothing.
No, not just like, no, you're looking at me like,
I'm with you.
skate away.
I got you.
I said nay because it's not enough.
Okay, I got you.
All right.
Jeff told me that Russell goes up there, but he does that meetings.
Yeah, maybe Saturday morning's the time to do it, when they're up. Not Monday morning when it's all done. Sorry. Okay, I'll wear that one too. Asset Management Policy, CAO. Why do I must have just moved that.
So, Your Worship, as we talked about during Charles's report, we're currently involved in a cohort group, a group of municipalities sort of working through asset management systematically. And one of the things that you want to have first as a basis for doing the work is a policy that kind of outlines, you know, kind of what you're doing, why you're doing it, and sort of principles that you're going to follow. And so this is a draft policy that our staff, our senior staff, worked on to kind of put some of the principles in place and outline some of the general roles and responsibilities. And we also included in here that the policy would be reviewed every 2 years. And so what we're asking is that you consider this, and if you wish to see it show up on your February council agenda for consideration, make that the motion. If you have any questions, more than happy to try and answer. This is the first of many sort of things that will come your way in terms of asset management, but it generally kind of gives you the principles and states them to the public why we're doing this.
Okay, so it's a good start. Go ahead there, Jim.
So I'm definitely in favor and want to make a motion to get the ball rolling. We manage assets that are combined with our sister municipalities. Is that correct, Jeff? And I guess my follow-up to that is just a question mark, is that whatever we do, I want to be sure that we bill our sister municipalities for the effort, the time and effort that we put in to the program.
Right, so our sister municipalities are also doing asset management work with us. And one of the things that we talked about is some of our shared assets, like the airport, like the waste park, like Mariner Center. We've kind of agreed that neither of us will take those on independently, and we won't all three do the work separately, is that we need to do the same work together around those specific assets. We're in the early steps right now for ourselves, but we are aware of those. So the case of water utilities is a little differently because we wholly own it. We do sell a service to residents and businesses outside of our boundaries, but we do own it entirely, and the water utility is part of our consideration. But these other things we've talked about, we've huddled about around the airport. What are we going to do about it? We're going to do something separate and specific to the airport.
Okay. That's good, thank you.
Good. Okay, so do you need a motion just to accept this as, okay? Motion to recommend this to council.
I'll second it.
Thank you.
Question, Your
All those in favor? Aye. Contrary? Motion carried. Thank you. Glebe Street Concepts. Charles?
Better not take as long as your sale sign.
It's the simple things.
the flowers in the alleyway.
Gosh.
Your worship, if I could just have 2 seconds to grab my bearings here.
Oh, take your time there, Charles. Anybody want to grab a coffee while we good?
Scroll down there, Charles. Scroll down.
Oh, okay. There's muffins and fruit. And there's some fruit.
Did Bruce go to that one? Is that another one?
Good.
Jeff? Attitude, hand side. One day at a time. Let's get this Thursday out of the way. We might be running the screen at the door at the end of the day.
Okay, we're ready to get started. Okay, Charles, you are on.
Thank you, Your Worship. So I wanted to do an overview on the Glebe Street parking garage demo and parking lot rebuild just before we jump into some of the details to refresh everybody's memory. So I believe last year this project was identified that there were major structural concerns with the parking garage. It was showing excessive degradation. There was major repairs that had to be executed. So the idea of demolishing the structure and starting over was pushed forward. So one of the benefits when we come back and get to redo the parking lot is that we can change the configuration and the geometry a little bit and see if we can optimize. So in that sense, when we approached the consultants for this rebuild and demolition, we asked them for some options and different ideas. So this drawing, although there's not too much color or contrast, this is the existing conditions. So I just want to point out some characteristics here. So with the existing parking lot, the entrance, due to grade concerns, comes in on the side, and it doesn't line up with what we call the traffic aisle in a parking lot. So this has a number of consequences. We lose several parking spaces just as a cost of that decision. And then it also has awkward vehicle maneuvering, and you can feel it when you come into the parking lot, how you have to almost do an S maneuver just to be able to get right into the traffic aisle here. So the consultant looked at a few different options, and one of the things that we said is that due to the grade, don't be afraid to play around with both parts of the parking lot, where it's split kind of in the middle here. Maybe we can tier the parking lot, and that would optimize other parts of the design and make it a little bit easier.
How does that work, Charles, when it comes to plowing and maintenance for the tiered part?
There could be, yeah, there's definitely some complexity with that. Maybe I'll run through, and then I think that question will be addressed,
okay.
Councillor, or Deputy Mayor, I should say. Sorry. So that's that, and I'll bring up a colorized image, which is much out of memory. That's bad. Apologize. Just give me a second here to. This. Right. So this is much easier to interpret here. So I want to start with this one. So if you just do those basic corrections to some of the existing geometries, you end up with something that looks like this. You can have, so you have the entrances lined up with the parking aisles, but then you have a grade difference between those two tiers. So if you have to come in here into the parking lot and turn around, do a 180 maneuver, then we will have to sacrifice some spaces, almost in a similar fashion to the interconnection between the two parts of the existing parking lot. So we have the option with this design of closing down or painting over, that diagonal paint through these 4 spaces here. And then you can do a similar maneuver to what you would do if you were trying to turn around without going into the second half of the existing parking lot. So, there, as the Deputy Mayor has correctly pointed out, this does have some difficulties, although it simplifies the entrances and also the sidewalk and a few other things as well. These retaining walls for this option are much lower, and I prefer that in construction because it's a simpler construction. If you have a 22-foot retaining wall, it's a very complicated thing to get right, and you'll have overturning and settling, which with vehicles on the top is not ideal. And it affects drainage. The settling affects drainage, and then everybody notices the drainage because we get a cold snap. The parking lot freezes, so it has great impact. So here's a way to take the benefits of changing this design and solve the problem that the Deputy Mayor has raised. And so what we do is we create this in-out scenario, and it links the 2 tiers, and it's idealized for vehicle maneuvering. So if you can imagine a vehicle coming in, you need to park, you reverse out. You've never done more than a 2-point turn with this geometry, which is really nice. There is a cost of doing this, and I'm sure as everybody has seen at the bottom here, this would require an extension into the Frost Park area with a footprint. Now it can be beautification is a part of this design. So, so one of the things that the consultants looked at is if we do have to step into Frost Park slightly for this geometry, can we mimic that surrounding design and sort of add to it and make it even better? So they took a look at a few options. They have this sidewalk here so that people in the lower portion can walk up, and these grades are all standard and typical grades, so they were able to resolve those. So someone can walk up here, and it's much easier than someone trying to have to come out to the street and walk all the way up here just due to the grades. On this side, they're much more gradual. So
I have one question on that immediately came to mind.
sure, Your Worship.
Frost Park is a grave site. Like, we're not, right?
Right.
I have no idea. I don't know that everything is marked or not marked. But that's my first concern is how do we know that that's okay? That's a good point. Thank you.
I think that's a good point, Your Worship, and I think a related point as well is, let's say that we're just going back to this solution. We wanted to implement this solution here. The demolition of that existing structure is going to be difficult. It's going to be the biggest part of the structure and the foundation is on the northwest corner, and that's adjacent to Frost Park and the Lost at Sea Memorial. So I envision that that there will be a construction imprint just anyway, and I don't know that it would be too much different from this. This is very generous, but this can be pushed in by making the turning radius more oblong, as the CAO has pointed out, and this footprint can be reduced. So it's not as drastic as that. But the construction footprint of just coming in there and demolishing the structure and rebuilding a new one will be, I would say that it would be likely at least half of this permanent infrastructure anyway. So that question will be addressed, will have to be addressed regardless. Your Worship, if I could have a few more minutes, there was another thing that I wanted to bring before you, and that was the question of, well, what about simply taking that structure down and rebuilding with a similar geometry as we possibly have to the existing conditions? But I do want to show you guys what there are sacrifices that we make on all fronts here, no matter what geometry we. So this is what I call the status quo solution. It's the scenario where you demolish everything and you rebuild to what you had before, like for like, with just more modernized retaining walls and stuff like that. So you see they were able to realign the entrance, but they weren't able to do too much more. We would still have this interconnection between the two portions of the parking lot, and then the rest is very similar. And to just highlight the point that I already made, you can see that there's underground infrastructure which is almost out into Frost Park as far as what that permanent infrastructure would have been, and we're going to have to tie these in regardless. But it does bring up an interesting point, and this is one reason why I wanted to bring this to council, is that there's some subjectivity here, and so it would be good to get some direction from council on some input from council and what people have seen, given the pluses and minuses on all sides.
Oh, sorry, Cliff, go ahead.
So Charles, the north wall of the existing structure is a retaining wall supporting the grade of Frost Park right now.
Correct.
Is there any integrity or sufficient integrity in that structure as it exists now to continue retaining that, either by way of how it is presently? Has it got any use going forward, or should it be reconstructed in any event to
sorry, the
to
existing structure.
continue having the same grade for Frost Park as you have now? Because we know there's some problems with that area of Frost Park that'll have to be investigated. We ran into that when this town hall was built in the north, right down here, where it encroached on the burying ground, okay? Because the place that you show in one of your alternatives, what you show in your diagram, it probably encroaches into the burying ground. And we're going to have to be very sensitive about that going forward. So if it turns out we can't do an encroachment into that area, you got to look at somehow what you're going to do with Frost Park anyway in terms of maintaining the grade. And so either leave that wall in place if it's got the structural integrity to do it, or beef it up or replace it, I would think, at the very least.
I 100% agree with you, Councillor, and that was the first suggestion that I made when I came onto this project is salvage the existing, come to the existing structure, do an audit, find out what's good, what's not, and what we have to remove structurally. However, the consultants were very opposed to that. They had already been approaching the project from a just tear out and replace. And the structural engineers didn't want to take the risk for that option.
See, one of the advantages of the rebuild, if you did rebuild the building, is that you'd be able to use the west wall, which is the backdrop for the memorial. You'd be able to do that in a aesthetically pleasing way. That would be one of the benefits of a rebuild, is that you could backdrop the memorial more suitably than it is now, and yet use that as one of your walls of your new rebuild. Anyway, I'll leave it at that.
The concept that the consultant is working with right now is interlocking blocks that are kind of, you lay them down and then you set back a percentage and then you do your next level and you go up. It's a textured panel, and it kind of matches the surrounding, but
Okay. Go ahead, because we're not sure where to go yet. Oh, sorry, Jim, go ahead.
That's okay. Oh. You're looking for direction from us, Jeff, as to do we need more investigation? I initially liked probably the most expensive suggestion, but I'm open for discussion. Just looking for what's our eventual goal. We need to replace the building because it's unsafe. We have to make the best use of it.
Go ahead, Jeff.
So the task was to eliminate the building because of its condition and to retain as much of the parking capacity as possible. That was sort of the terms of reference. Charles has brought this to you because, as he explained to me, from a technical perspective, from an engineering perspective, he's kind of indifferent on these. It comes down to an aesthetic question and a question that, probably most that you folks can weigh in on and direct. And so it's here. It's realizing you're only seeing it this morning. I don't want you to feel pressured to have to resolve it. Again, it's the kind of item you've got some information if you want to defer it until a later meeting. But it is a project that is budgeted for, and we don't want to defer it forever because of the deteriorating condition of the building itself. So if you want to defer it for further discussion, I would say a month on the outside as far as giving Charles direction, which concept or maybe there's some other ideas that you wish to give back to him to move forward.
Deputy?
Jeff, you alluded to just for a second in the budgeting process. When are we going to do our budgeting process? Because I know this is...
Go ahead. Oh,
We'd
wait a
have more
minute, now I
times
got
to,
Jim on, I got-
we'd have more opportunity to ask Charles questions. and-
Yeah, so this project has already been budgeted for. The money is set aside for it, as we identified it a couple of years ago. So we were able to place it in the budget, and it just didn't get executed because of workload and transition in the engineer office. So now it's on Charles's plate, and he's trying to move it forward. But notwithstanding that, as far as your capital budgeting process, which will be the first bit that you guys will sink your teeth into, Jerry mentioned in his report that he's collecting all of the information from the directors and, around what they foresee, and we'll be placing that in a schedule and bringing it forward for your consideration. Early as February, Jerry, start that discussion?
Yeah, I would expect that we can meet again later next week, small group, to try to pull together our thoughts, and of course we consider what council's already discussed in those prior meetings. But yeah, I would expect for sure early February we'll be starting in the capital with council.
So Charles, you got all your engineering buddies, you're in school, right? And you got presented this project, or this project is a test case. What would you suggest?
I would suggest this option here. It has the least construction complexity, and it has the best geometry.
Which one,
Eh,
on the left?
On the
sorry.
left.
Yeah, sorry, no, I got-
This one right here.
And you said, with some input from Janet and the Heritage Committee, looking at the plot plan for the Frost Park, and you said that could not be, that wouldn't be, what you have outlined there wouldn't be as intrusive as you could make it less intrusive?
We could make it less intrusive.
Okay.
So,
Okay, hang on.
and I kind of like that one too, but I just have the concerns that we've all expressed about the burial site. Are there two levels of the Lost at Sea Memorial Wall? Is that level lower than the upper level?
Yes,
Yeah, on the left?
2 levels.
Is the parking closest to the Lost at Sea Memorial, is that on the lower level than the
Yes.
upper level? So there's an incline, or as you go around.
This top portion here, can you guys see that? That would remain approximately the same grade that it is right now, and then these ones, the rest would be blended, so the other side, the lower one, would be blended into that with the ramp and the sidewalk.
So the wall abutting the memorial is it lower than it is now?
Yes, sorry. Yes, that's an excellent question. So the trade-off with this is that you can rebuild like for like, and then you have, again, the 22-footer or whatever retaining wall, or you can kind of chop that in half and take take the parking lot and change the grade such that you don't require that retaining wall, and then the end result is that you've about halved the required height of maybe even less.
The roundabout, maybe, or cul-de-sac, whatever, maybe we could move that in. How many parking spaces today, and how many parking spaces tomorrow in the new site that we're talking about? If we don't know, maybe we could move it in a parking space and lose, what, 3 maybe, or 1, maybe 4 spaces? Would that be?
Just,
You know where
Yeah,
I am
yeah.
on that, Charles?
I believe so, yeah. I think we can tighten this up. I think that, and Jeff and I had spoke briefly about this, or the CAO had given had a similar idea, and I think that that's the right way of thinking. It's taking this idealized one and just cleaning it up and minimizing the impacts, and then just getting it to a point where it's in detailed design.
And you've indicated that that is the least costly remedy.
Interestingly enough, all 3 of the options have a very similar cost, within 10%. However, they don't have the same construction risks. They have very different construction risks when you're talking about build complexity and different things like that. So the 2-tiered option has a much lower build complexity. The retaining wall is less than half the size, which means that the settling will be there'll be a multiplicative effect. And the geometry is better, so the end geometry is better.
The idea of two entrances on and off Glebe Street is, I think, a safer situation.
It will also allow us to more holistically incorporate the sidewalk, which is, I would say, currently a problem.
I mean, Jeff, you indicated a moment ago that you don't want us to delay this if any more than a month's time. So it's construction time in the summertime. We need to sort of get our act together. If you were to reduce the parking spaces as indicated by Charles and I by 3 or 4 or 5, whatever, that, to me, that would be a direction to go in. Are you, if you were looking for direction today, as opposed to a month from now, when you're,
Yeah,
because
so-
we're not going to be looking at this tomorrow night or the next night.
No.
Unless Charles sends that to us and we want to have a discussion later. I mean, all of us around the table have experience and expertise in different areas. What's the bad thing about us? I'll ask that question. That's what I always like to ask when I've ever done anything. What's bad about us choosing the option that I've been talking about with Charles?
So you're talking, sorry, if I may.
Yes, go ahead.
So you're talking about that option that Charles has just brought up prominently there.
The
and
colorful one.
moving the loop up, right? I'm thinking as you're talking, if you even went so far as to say, move that loop up into the present footprint, you're going to sacrifice, 8, 10 parking spaces, but there's a risk in moving, there's a risk and maybe an issue in moving the loop into the park, whether the public is accepting of giving up park for a loop. And, as Councillor Hood has identified, you have the real potential of getting into a sensitive issue based on the past use of the property. You could avoid the lion's share of that by moving the loop into the present footprint and solve your movement. You will reduce, the sacrifice there is you give up some parking.
So we don't know what the number of spaces we have today and compared to tomorrow in that space.
We do.
You do?
I believe it's 27 existing right now, excluding the accessible, and this design would include 33. So you have 6 extra, you have 20% extra, and then any that you, if you just incrementally sacrifice some of them to optimize the design and minimize the impact of Frost Park, you're only sacrificing several of the ones that you've gained. You would never
So we're not falling
net
behind.
less. You would never net less parking spaces if you were, just because of how many you've increased over here
Okay.
and in the middle here.
All right, that makes sense.
So just give direction so we can proceed, because there's always a procedure to proceed. Let's, Cliff, you go ahead. I'm okay with this process.
There are consultants in Halifax that can do an archaeological evaluation of that area there. Frankly, we just used one at the solid waste park on some issues out there that we had to identify. We were required to identify, frankly. And I mean, if we move to go forward now, Charles could still investigate. We would have to know for sure if we're going to do that encroachment there, which is the desired option, I think. We have to know for sure whether or not it intrudes on anything like that.
Totally agree, Cliff. So, Jeff, if we, not sure about the other two, or three, but if we're in favor of the colorful option there with some changes, what do you need from us today?
Motion, direction to staff to proceed and describe what it is you want, and then... Sorry, motion to proceed to direct staff to proceed with, and you describe what you want, And so what Charles will do with that is undertake the appropriate, take the advice of the table, do the appropriate investigations, and work with the design consultant to modify this to optimize, maybe minimize the encroachment.
So I'll make that motion.
Okay, Councillor Barry?
Okay, on the motion, I guess, I would like to know how far are we encroaching on the property? And if by not encroaching on the property, how much spaces we would lose on that far side? That would make common sense for me, because if we're bringing in one of those people that study people that have passed away and stuff, if we don't encroach on that, I'd just like to know exactly how many spots I'm either losing or gaining. We've already went from what I remember, at least 30 some odd, to our regular group, which is 27. So if I'm going to, with less headaches, if I'm going to lose encroaching on that property and only lose 5 spaces, I'm back to 27 anyway. I've already gained what I'm looking for. I'm not losing space or parking space. That's what our main objective. And if we're not losing that, I think this design's great. I just think that I wouldn't want that as my headache by encroaching on that property if it's 5 extra parking spots and gives me to my 27 anyway.
Right. Okay. Councillor, I think that's an excellent point. I haven't done the calculations myself, but my instincts and conversations with CBCL is that you wouldn't be able to bring this this ramp completely within the existing.
But okay, just so we understand, because I'm with you. If you, it's relatively simple. If we do this, we make the changes, we're adding spaces. If we haul that up in, are we further behind in spaces than where we are right now?
Well, that's part of what he's going to talk about.
No, I know that, but the math just says, I just understood that we're not going to be behind in spaces because we've got that whole middle section filled in spaces. We're not going to be behind.
Right, because I don't believe that you could adequately resolve that completely within the original footprint.
Okay.
But you could push it up and impact and try to take it. And another interesting idea that you could say is, what are my construction impacts anyway? And then they come out into Frost Park X amount of distance, and then you say, well, then that has already been impacted. That X amount of distance could hypothetically have permanent infrastructure since it would have been impacted anyway.
Okay.
But our motion's going to look into that, as Cliff has suggested.
No,
Yeah.
that's it.
Right.
We want to know, to Don's question.
Yeah.
Okay, did you want to say something? You good? Okay, so there's a motion on the table to look into those options. Correct?
Question, Worship.
All those in favor? Aye. Contrary? Motion carries. Thanks, Charles.
Thank you, Your Worship.
Letter of support, World Acadian Congress.
Your Worship, I'll make a motion that we support the World Acadian Congress for potentially the year 2024.
Okay.
Send them a letter of support.
And that letter of support, moved and seconded. Any discussion?
Question.
Questions called. All those in favor?
Aye.
Contrary? Motion carried. Haley Road sidewalk budget.
Charles, come on up, man.
So we're on the sidewalk, Haley Road sidewalk budget. I don't think I have anything, or did I miss it?
You got the right check for that?
Okay, yeah, all right, sure it is, but
Yeah.
I printed it myself, so. Okay, you're good to go.
Okay, thank you, Your Worship. So this report that we've assembled was based, there's a few source documents, and the manager of Public Works had produced an estimate in 2013 for this work. And then, so I took a look at that, and we're talking about, sorry, excuse me, let me back up. So council had indicated that they would like staff to take a look at a sidewalk from Argyle Street and Haley Road all the way to Stars Road and Haley. and they wanted a west side of the road alignment. So there was a little bit of preliminary work done in this regard by the town manager of Public Works. And so I took a look at that, and that was done in 2013. Also engaged a few consultants. I got numbers from CBCL. And the end result of it is that the total cost is going to be 1.4 million to build all the way from Argyle to Stars Road. And I think that it should be done in several phases. I don't think we have to do the whole project in one shot. I think it can be broken up and maybe from intersection to intersection, just as you move closer to Stars Road or Argyle, whichever way you want to start. Yeah, were there any questions?
Yeah, thanks. Like, good work, but 4th Street to Parade, 4th Street to Parade. It says 434 meters, 4th Street. Okay, yeah, okay. There has been some talk on a preliminary basis, just talking to somebody that's involved with the church out there, that you could use from 4th Street to Parade, you could use, would it be any cheaper, Charles, if you went inside the wall?
Possibly.
Possibly?
Possibly, yeah. There's utility poles on the other side of the wall plus a ditch, so you would include stormwater infrastructure plus infilling, plus having to meander around the...
Yeah, because it doesn't do you any good to do Haley Road to Forest without doing the Forest to Parade or the other one going the other way either, right?
You mean you need full connectivity between Stars and Argyle?
Yeah. That's just my thought, Your Worship, and...
I think there, yeah. I mean, there's no,
And the other
there's
one
no
is
sidewalk
maybe,
at all, but
and the other one would be, at a later date, maybe from Jody Shelley Drive to Haley Road.
what do you mean, the whole Jody Shelley Drive?
No, Jody Shelley Drive from...
Just
from the
where
corner
that
there
mark
Mr.
is?
Burke is, to catch the sidewalk going up the lake. There's no sidewalk on that side, past Trask Avenue.
Oh, gotcha. Okay. So, yeah, I mean, we can't, I say we can't do this all at once.
What's the process if we're going to do this?
Councillor Hood first, go ahead.
So the plan is all of Haley Road, Argyle to Stars Road. And if the objective is to give access to the people east of Forest Street, where the most of them are now, pedestrian traffic, to Stars Road, it seems little point to do sections that can't be, I think you have to start going from north to south. In other words, you have to do Stars Road to Parade to, because what would be the point of doing that section you're talking and just in the middle, and then nothing, you don't have going across this heavily trafficked area of Haley Road?
So, let me throw this out there. I know it's a safety
You got
issue,
there's three
but there's
sections.
more room for people to walk on that west side between Parade and Stars. I mean, it's
Well,
the stores are there, the stores are there. Like, there's space for them to walk. It's not a sidewalk. So I guess I'm backwards. I'm going from Argyle and starting.
it's not a very good walking place on that heavily trafficked piece of highway.
Yeah, right in the corner there. Yeah, I'm thinking from,
You know, that's what I'm
Yeah.
saying. It breaks it up.
yeah.
And it seems, I think the idea, if we could work a deal with the church to save those parking, the stone walls, just from an aesthetic point of view, if you could do
Well,
that,
yeah, you can't take those down.
that would allow you to get that section done probably cheaper and quicker than any other option for that section. But the main source of pedestrian traffic that we're thinking about is to the east of Forest Street, I would think, and the high school. Anyway, we should get on with this.
I agree. Okay, Jeff?
So the next step, if you have the information in terms of order of magnitude, the cost estimate, would be to refer to the capital budget process, and this will go on the list that Jerry's assembling, and we'll figure it out as we look at all of the projects and what do you want to do over the next few years. So just refer to the capital budget process.
Make a
and
motion to
talk about
refer
Thank you.
the Haley Road sidewalk budget to, Haley Road sidewalk project to budget.
Okay, moved and seconded, discussion, all those in favor? Aye. Contrary, motion carried. Plastic bags.
Your worship.
CAO.
Your worship, I've put a request for decision. If you noticed, Halifax Regional Municipality's been dealing with the plastic bag question. Very recently, Regional Council passed a motion to develop a bylaw, and with the intention of having it implemented by the end of this calendar year. In the motion, they did indicate that they wish to engage with, how did they say it, 10 largest Nova Scotia municipalities to develop the bylaw, and thinking, because the province wasn't going to lead and create this plastic bag ban, that they would not want to do it in pure isolation, but they would want to get some buy-in from around the province. We aren't one of the 10 largest Nova Scotia municipalities. We are the 5th largest town.
Yeah, okay. Okay. I think, okay, sorry about that. I think I need to double check on that.
This is the motion directly from their
Yes,
website.
exactly. Yeah.
So the intent isn't clear. I know they did talk to the 9 largest towns, but 9 largest towns aren't the 10 largest municipalities. So there's a question is what was their intent? What I'm suggesting to you is, if you want to be in on the discussion, would be to proactively reach out to Halifax and say, listen, if you're going to create a table to discuss and engage on this, that we want to be represented at that table for that discussion.
Because the towns, in large part, the towns are the ones that are putting out the majority of the bags. That's why we got together as 10 towns and the cities to start this. Go ahead, Jim.
So Jeff, in your request for decision, is that it's the recommendation on the second line that council offered to collaborate with the HRM in the drafting and consideration of a bylaw prohibiting single-use plastic bags? So moved.
Okay, discussion, you good?
Yeah, for discussion.
That we work with, hold it. First of all, he doesn't. It is seconded, but that's not the issue. The 10 largest towns and the cities got together, and we said, if somebody doesn't do something, then nothing happens. So we just agreed that we would bring it to our councils. We're bringing it to our councils, and frankly, politics gets in the way of some, and everybody can't agree. So just appears that Halifax is leading the charge on this. It's not any one person's agenda. It's Halifax, because somebody has to do it. I wish it would have been us, frankly.
Well, we voted, Cliff, Councillor Hood, am I mistaken that we voted at Waste Check to support the 5 out of 6 say yes?
So the motion is that council offer to collaborate with HRM in the drafting and consideration of the bylaw prohibiting the single-use plastic bags, and I am going to I'll reach out to HRM, or you can, whatever, just to make sure that they meant the 10 largest municipalities, because sometimes the largest municipalities don't even produce the large. We're the 5th largest town. So what we put out there with regard to plastic bags is huge. So that's what matters. Questions called. All those in favor? Aye. Contrary? Thank you. Oh, you're funny. Okay, well, here's a good one for you there, Councillor. Letter from Minister Miller, Solid Waste Resource Management Amendment. CAO.
Your worship, this is for information, but I think it does have potential implications. I don't know if Waste Check has discussed it, but what they're effectively doing is saying that certain solid waste can be diverted to energy production, and that would be considered diversion of waste as opposed to depositing in a landfill. And so the implications of this are there's an opportunity, right? There's an opportunity in the province to make some productive use of waste if the technology is there and if the investment is there. The question that it leaves is also important to think about is if that becomes an industry and a competitive industry where companies are soliciting waste contracts to be able to fuel their generators to be able to produce heat or electricity for customers, once the available fuel is used up, will they be pushing the government to allow other waste, such as recyclables, plastic bags, maybe organics, to be made available to them as a fuel supply if they're running a profitable business? The implication of that is around our solid waste infrastructure investments, particularly our compost facility and our waste park. If in the future this policy direction takes us to the point where those become unnecessary or stranded assets, then there's this cost associated. If you're the region of Queens, where we take our clear bags today, if those clear bags are going to be burned, incinerated in some way to create heat or electricity, then they have a multi-million-dollar investment in a complex hole in the ground that now that waste that they would have been paid for to deposit goes somewhere else and as a fuel. So their hole becomes, the second generation landfill becomes a stranded asset. Right? So there are implications, and it's just going to be interesting to keep an eye on as this develops, and to keep our minds attuned to as we think about our future investments in capital infrastructure for solid waste.
Good. What do you need? Councillor Hood?
They're already doing, so there's a pilot project, actually a private enterprise pilot project in the municipality or the village in Chester right now. And this is going to enable that project to go forward. And here we just talked about plastic bags. Plastic bags are made from crude oil. They're one of the thousands of products that come out of crude oil besides gasoline. And they can be converted back to just about any product that you want if you put enough money into the processes. You can combine methane gas and CO2 and get carbon fiber. They've just done that in the lab in Halifax. And all we're going to do with a plastic bag ban is shove the problem back somewhere else. Somebody's got to get rid of them if we ban them, or else we're going to be, just read the paper. The carbon footprint of producing paper bags is hugely more than producing plastic bags. It is. It's pulp and paper. You have to have pulp mills like that monstrosity of Northern Pulp, grinding away, putting stuff out into the street and all that to have paper bags.
Well, we're not.
Enough said.
We're not suggesting switching from plastic to paper. And we're not talking about switching from plastic to paper. We're talking about some of it would be paper, but people bring in their own bags. It's.
What are you going to do with the bags, the big ones? What's the carbon footprint of one of those bags, and how much does it cost to produce that compared to the disposable plastic bag? You got to get rid of it sometime.
Okay, so we good? Because that was for information? Okay, so the next thing is Glebe Street and, what's that?
Charles again?
Yep, Glebe Street and Parade Street sewer separation.
Frank, are you glad you're not an engineer?
This shouldn't take. Okay, so we got some stuff we gotta do, Lisa's work.
No. Okay, we, 1, 2, 3, we still got 4 of
So we can
us.
go through this. Oh, sorry.
Go, you're good.
We'll go through this as quickly as we can. Thank you. So I'm sure people are familiar with Glebe Street, Parade Street. There's kind of a sewer, existing stone sewer system through Parade Street, and it snakes down across Main, goes down to Glebe Street, and then hits the septic main going to the plant. That infrastructure is archaic, it's not modern. It has a high risk of failure, and it's been on the radar for the engineering department and the public works department for some time now. Luckily, or fortunately, a funding opportunity through the Invest in Canada program, infrastructure program, has come up, and there's a federal component, and I believe the federal component is 40% spending, and then a provincial component of 33%. And the Parade Street, Glebe Street sewer rebuild and stormwater separation would be eligible for that funding. So what we're talking about is ripping up the road, putting in a more modern constructed septic system, and separating out the stormwater that is currently entering the stone sewer, and putting that in its own pipe, and replacing the water distribution as well, and then restoring back to grade, putting our curbing in and our asphalt. And the total cost for this project is approximately $3.5 million. And what engineering is looking for council to support this funding application under those criterion.
Okay,
We proceed to place this, you want it on budget, or is it? So
So the project has been in our capital budget as a future year project, and it's come time for it, so it's very timely. The motion that Charles needs is there on the website, and it reads, "The council supports the submission of the Glebe Street and Parade Street sewer separation project under the Investing in Canada Infrastructure Program," and we'd want to include the 3.5 million, Charles?
Preferably not, but
Okay.
it's not in there now, so,
Yeah.
basically saying subject to qualification, subject to budgeting and qualification by the federal and provincial governments for their shares under the Build
Well,
Canada.
this is to approve investing, to approve applying. Yeah.
So that's my motion, Your Worship.
okay.
On the question, you're looking at approximately 73% coming from the other partners, and our percentage would be 27%, right? Okay.
correct.
Do we have a figure, a rough estimate figure on our 25, on our 27%? Just
If you rounded it up to a $4 million project, just as, and you said we're approximately 25%, so we're just over $1 million
Okay.
of the project.
27 is 945. Okay, of the 3.5 million.
Think around
Yeah.
$1 million.
Yep,
Another version is the Brown Street plus Main plus
So,
good, okay, so questions called, all those in favor? Aye. Contrary, motion carried. You sure can.
one question for Charles on that for clarification. So, Charles, are the streetscape improvements within the scope?
The streetscape improvements are within the construction scheduling and implementation scope. They are not within the figure that under the funding.
Right, and so we were looking at a different project to apply to assist with that at a different
Correct.
ratio. So there is the potential if we line up Yeah, in an ideal world, we'll get up with 2 approvals, and we'll be able to do streetscape improvements similar to what you've seen up on, further up Main Street, down on this end.
Thank you, CA.
I guess, one,
Don first.
that's okay.
Go ahead, Don.
Go ahead, Glebe.
No, you're on, your light's on.
Okay, my question would be shutdown time for public, you know what I mean? So we'll have to be very clear for it's gonna come across Main, right? So shutdown time for that particular thing would have to be negotiated, because that's probably one of the busiest throughout the town. Probably gonna be similar to on further down when we did Brown. Okay.
Yeah. Okay, you done, Cliff?
To Pleasant Street.
Far east on Parade,
Pleasant Street.
Pleasant. Okay, thanks.
Oh. You already got rid of one hill in one of the council lifetime, Dick.
Okay, so did we make the motion?
Yeah.
We're done? Okay. All right, grants deadline.
Your worship, very quickly, just to inform you that
Yeah, we did. All those in favor? Aye. Contrary? Motion carried. Go ahead.
thank you. So we extended the grants deadline 2 weeks just because of timing of getting the applications out and so on. So just to let you know that the deadline, I believe, is February the 14th now, right? And no, it's done.
Done.
We did it, and this is to advise you and to let you know that at the February Committee of the Whole, we'll be asking you if you want to have a presentations meeting, because we talked about maybe just having some groups come in, maybe the bigger asks. We'll talk about that on the February agenda.
So before that, okay. At that meeting, we need to discuss what we asked for. So basically, we said in the letter, if you don't need the money, don't ask. And secondly, that you need to tap into money from other places as well, right? So we need to kind of check those things. So that may determine who we want to see. Anyway, okay, we're good. Dispatch contract. CAO?
Your worship, we have a memo from Chief Farrell to myself with regard to the contracting out of our dispatch service. So I can quickly summarize, and it's gone off my screen, so thank you. Quickly summarize that Chief Farrell did undertake the due diligence on the 2 proposals that we received from Digby EMC and Valley Communications. He reviewed both proposals in detail. He spoke to both proponents. He visited both dispatch centers, and his memo is pretty self-explanatory. In the end, in light of reviewing, I'm recommending that we recommend to council to use the Digby dispatch service once our service discontinues. And so that's the recommendation, which I wholeheartedly support. I believe Chief Farrell has done a great amount of work to ensure that the service that Digby dispatch would provide would be the best for our area. And just to say that the rest of Yarmouth County has already switched to Digby dispatch, and so there's confirmation of that decision. At least, you know, they have reached the same conclusion, and in us reaching that recommendation to you, it brings the consistency, at least in Yarmouth County, that all of the fire departments in Yarmouth County would be dispatched through the same center. So from a mutual aid perspective, I think that would be the most efficient. The proposal from Digby Dispatch is attached on the agenda, and I draw your attention to the financial question. So their proposal, done the wrong one here. $7,000, thank you, plus a $1,000 first-year setup cost. That is not the cost to the town of Yarmouth taxpayer, because the town of Yarmouth fire service is shared with the municipality of Yarmouth for a large area of the municipality. They pay 30% of the previous year's actuals, and so the net cost to the town of Yarmouth taxpayer will end up being $5,600 for the first year, and less than $5,000 going forward. That compares to our cost last year to the town of Yarmouth taxpayer for dispatch service being $160,000. So for roughly, not doing the math quickly in my head, roughly 3% of the past cost, we'll be able to receive a service that is, as you'll see in the proposal, compliant with the Fire Services Association Nova Scotia dispatch standards, and again, is the same service that our neighbors have switched to. So that is for your consideration, and if you choose to move forward, Your Worship, I'm going to request here that we have a special council meeting immediately following the Committee of the Whole meeting to ratify both the motion that you'll make here, I'm anticipating, as well as the motion that you just made with regard to the infrastructure program and the Glebe Street, Parade Street project.
Go ahead, Councillor Jim.
I'll make a motion that we recommend that we move our fire dispatch service to Digby, as indicated in the John Barrow's report.
I'll second the motion if you add to it that we approve it here and we move immediately, include in the motion that we immediately move to a special council meeting to ratify same as approved by this meeting.
Agreed.
Yep, okay. All right. All those in favor? Aye. Contrary? Motion carried. Thank you. Okay, so we got 4 correspondents. Municipality of Yarmouth Rewater from Mariner Center.
Your Worship. Your Worship, during the drought this past summer, Mariner Center, once again, as they did in 2016, provided a service to the residents of our region whose wells were dry. They allowed people to come, bring their own containers, and take water from a large water service at Mariner Center. So the amount of water, if I'm reading this correctly, so the increase of water used and estimated to be the amount of water that was taken was 766,000 gallons. Okay, so that's a lot of water, and that resulted in an increase in water bill to Mariner Center, which prior to the service being offered, Gil reached out to the municipalities, and clearly we said, as long as the increased cost is absorbed by the municipalities for which the service is being offered, and that clearly is not the town, then absolutely. And so the municipalities agreed to absorb the cost. Now, what happened when the bill was being calculated is they realized that there's also an increased cost on the sewer side, because we have a sewer service in the town of Yarmouth, and we use water consumption as a proxy for how we allocate cost for the sewer system. We don't meter sewer water, we meter drinking water, and we use it as a proxy. So for instance, Mariner Center typically would have a water bill, a sewer bill based on their water consumption, but a lot of their water goes to making ice, and that ice never makes its way into the sewer system. But we don't subtract that or try to subtract that because it's a proxy. It isn't meant that we're measuring the water that goes in the sewer system. It's a proxy to allocate the cost. If you're quality concrete, a lot of your water is going into concrete, right? It's not going into the sewer system. But we don't subtract that because, again, it is a proxy for the service. So what was suggested by Mariner Center to the municipalities was that they share the cost of the water consumption and ask the town to forgive the sewer charge because the water wasn't discharged into the system. We don't typically, because we don't meter storm or sewer water, we don't know how much is discharged into the system. It is a proxy. And so this is a request to the town from the municipality to forgive that sewer charge or to cover it for Mariner Center, one way or the other, and I guess this is for your consideration.
ahead, Councillor McLeod.
I'm not sure what the proper procedure is, but water is water. I want to send a bill to our sister municipality for $8,339.44.
I agree.
Motion.
Okay.
And just before I comment, I have a question for the CAO. There are two of our largest water consumers in the town are the two herring processing plants. Do we charge them a sewer charge?
There is an exception or a special rule for at least one of the herring processing plants, both on the water and on the sewer. So within our water,
Is that something that the URA, or whatever they are now?
UARB certainly weighed in on the water side, but they don't regulate sewer. That was something that was done by the town.
So those operations, to my knowledge, would consume a lot of water that does not go into the sewer. It doesn't all go into the sewer by a large,
Absolutely.
by large measure.
Absolutely.
So I'm interested as to how they're treated as opposed to what is happening out there. I mean, I'm
So I don't have that information directly from you. I don't know if Jerry knows that.
and if it's reasonable or unreasonable, I would prefer to do what you want to do, Councillor, but
So we need a second.
I think there may be some comparisons here that we should look at.
Second, it's like
Go ahead.
you good, Cliff, or you? It's like the horse is already out of the barn, right? So they already agreed that they were going to pay for the expenses of the water going through the system.
Well,
And we
We just don't separate it.
no, part of the extra cost of living in the town of Yarmouth is you have access to water and getting rid of the stuff, so. You water your lawn, that's right.
But yeah, and the taxpayers, if we do this, the taxpayers are paying, our taxpayers, that's not happening. Okay?
Yeah,
Moved
I'm
and
good.
seconded.
I'm good.
All those in favor? Aye. Contrary? Motion carried. Oh, absolutely. Yeah, yeah. But understanding that every ounce of water that goes through our system, that we have to pay for. Okay, previously distributed, we're good on those. Oh, Councillor Mooney, or Deputy, did you want to make a motion with regard to the Foundation Radiothon?
I'd like to make a motion, we grant $500 to the hospital foundation radiothon.
Okay, so $500 to the Radiothon, seconded. All those in favor? Aye. Contrary, motion carried. And Deputy, we have a date for that? I think February 7th or something like that, so, okay, we'll go to that. Is there anything else on there that we needed to?
Your worship, will make a motion that.
I need your light.
Appoint Councillor Wayne Cleveland to the Mariners Center.
Okay,
Board.
Councillor Cleveland to the Mariner Center Board, and he's already agreed to that?
Yeah.
Okay, all those in favor? Oh, I need a second. Seconded. All those in favor? Aye. Whoops. My apology, hang on, we didn't say aye yet.
There is a related issue to that, is that you have 3 citizen appointments, and the amendment in the agreement is that you still have 3 appointments. It's just that one of them is to be an elected official, and so we're going to have to thank one of our citizen representatives. Now, it is time to appoint people to committees and boards, and so we'll undertake that process in the next few weeks to confirm whether people are still interested, and maybe to reach out to the community to see if there are other people interested in these appointments. But just beware that somebody is going to have to be thanked, whether they step away or we have to thank them and have them step away in order to create that position.
Good, thank you.
A quick question. Should we appoint an alternate to, in case, is that appropriate? Just a question, Your Worship and Jeff.
I'd have to look and see if the bylaws permit the alternate, but I can report back on that.
Good? Okay, do we make a motion? Seconded, all those in favor? Aye. Contrary? Motion carried. Okay, so as far as I can see, we're finished.
Motion to adjourn, Your Worship.
Okay, motion to adjourn, and I'll call this council meeting to order. Record of attendance, Lindsay, so now we're in a regular council meeting. Absent with regrets. Declarations, approval of agenda, and there's 3 items. All those in favor? Aye. Contrary? Motion carried. Okay, so the first one I have was the World Acadian Congress, and I'll tell you why, because they just need that letter by the end of the month. They asked. So are we okay?
So move with the letter of support, Your Worship.
Okay. Moved, seconded by Councillor Barry. All those in favor? Aye. Contrary? Motion carried. Second one was the Glebe Street application. Okay? So moved by Councillor Barry, second by Councillor McLeod. Any discussion on that one?
Question, Your Worship.
All those in favor? Aye. Contrary? Motion carried. And the third one is the motion redispatched to Digby. Moved by Councillor Barry, seconded. Discussion?
Question, Your Worship.
All those in favor? Aye. Contrary? Motion carried. Motion to adjourn. Anything in camera?